Postpartum anxiety and depression is increasing. I think a lot of it is that it was always there, just wasn't shared. I think there just needs to be more community also and more moms just being there for moms. So I would really like to have like a really large mom community, a place where like moms from all over can come and ask questions and find guidance, but also like meet moms. And that's actually why I also made my podcast, which is
Welcome back to New York's Business Podcast. My name is Jacob Restituto. I am the host and owner of Restituto Media, a full-service photo and video company based on Long Island. Today I'm here with Sammi Gropper, the founder of Mama of All Trades. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. So thank you so much, Sammi, for taking the time.
yes, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
My pleasure. So I'd like to hear your story. You have quite a unique story, actually, and how you kind of got into this industry and how we were talking about it before we started filming.
Yeah.
But all of the things that you do within this industry. You talked about the fact that you have two children's books out
Yes.
there. You talked about the fact that you're a lactation consultant. And the reason that you actually went with Mom of All Trades is because you actually didn't want to be, I'm telling your whole story, right?
Yeah.
What are you going to talk about?
I
Is
love it.
because you didn't want to, as you are a lactation consultant, you didn't want to be super niche in that you want to showcase your whole industry. So let's hear your story. Now that I told half of it,
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your side of it.
Yeah, awesome. So, yeah, that is a lot about me, but even further back, I was actually an elementary school teacher. So, for 9 years, I taught science, technology, robotics, and engineering to elementary school students. And if you asked me what I wanted to be my whole life, it would be a teacher. But as I was doing it every day, I just felt like I couldn't do this every day for the rest of my life. And things changed after the pandemic. And I was just like, this really doesn't feel for me. And then I had my daughter. And I like looked at her every day as maternity leave was starting to end. And I was like, nope, nope. And I would just cry and cry. I was like, I'm not going back. I can't do it. And then I finally was like, I'm just not. I'm just absolutely not doing it. And I just called and quit and told my husband, I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not going back to school. So I have to figure something out. So I went online and I found some remote jobs and started doing remote, thinking I could be an at-home mom while working full time, which like I was like, I'm home. That would be easy. It was not easy. So I had to get some nanny and this, and it was fine. And then I was faced with the fact that startups and companies do layoffs. That doesn't really happen in elementary schools. I was on a tenure track position. You don't like they don't just do layoffs where 40 people are gone. So I was like, oh, this is like real life and this happened. So then I was thinking about what to do. And I decided to go for 2 certifications that we're passionate about and I had the time to do. So I got my real estate license and I got my certificate for to be a certified breastfeeding counselor. And I started kind of just sharing my story on social media, to be honest, and my pumping and my nursing. And all of a sudden, I kind of got DMs all the time. And it was like, what did you do about this? What did you do about that? I saw your daughter is already drinking straw cups. How did you get her to drink a straw cup? I can't get my kid off of a bottle. And I was just constantly answering people. And my husband's like, who are you talking to all the time? And I was like, oh, this girl used to go to high school with. And he was like, you haven't talked to her in 10 years. Like, she's a mom now. And it just like really started lighting me up. Like all of a sudden I finally had passion again. And I always thought that was going to be me as a teacher forever. And I was miserable. And all of a sudden I was happy. So I said, you know what? I'm just going for it. And I founded my own business and I figured what is there to lose? I don't have a job anyway right now. So let's
That's
just do
fair. I
it.
love that.
Like,
When
let's
you're at
just do
rock
it.
bottom, there's no further you
What
can
is there
go.
to do? And so I started doing it. I started doing virtual consults and helping moms with breastfeeding and pumping. And it really just brought me joy. So then I was like, I need a business name. I need a brand. I need to do this. Right. So, and that's when I was like, okay, I could do, pump with me, pumping mom. I could really have like a lactation name, but I'm more than that. And so that's when I was like, someone called me. They're like, you're like the jack of all trades. And I was kind of like, isn't that a bad thing? Like, I do so many things, I'm not good at anything. And then they were like, you didn't read the full definition of like the jack of all trades. And it really like when I did, it really takes the time to explain that it's like you're not the master of one, but you're great at so many things. And I was like, I love that, but I'm not like a jack, I'm the mama. So I just kind of went with mama of all trades. And then I'm not like always stuck in one thing. And I could work with people. People ask me, how'd you publish a children's book? I can help them, right? I can help them with lactation. I could sell houses like I'm doing. I'm on a real estate team, and it kind of just encompasses that I'm a working mom and I could do a few things, but I'm here to help. And I just want to build community is really the goal. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's how I got where I am.
So I love that. It's interesting how some of life's hardest moments can also be some of the best transition points
Yeah.
for us. How old are your kids? Like, how long have you been doing this? How old are your kids? How much time was in between? I'm curious
Yeah.
about that process.
Yeah. So my daughter's going to be 3 this month, which is absolutely wild. Part of me is like, I've always been a mom. Part of me is like, how is she already 3? And my son just turned 15 months this weekend. So they were 20 months apart. I breastfed and pumped for my daughter for 13 and a half months until I was pregnant with my son. And I'm still pumping and nursing with my son. So I'm at like 28 months nursing and pumping in the last 3 years. So I've had lots of experience with it, tried a lot of different pumps. And I founded my business, Mama of All Trades, in last April. So almost a year ago now.
Wow,
Yeah.
very cool. So,
Yeah.
what has that process been like? So as somebody that's been in business my whole life, it's been interesting. I found it's been interesting transition from when you turn an idea or a passion into an actual business. What was that transition like for you?
Yeah, I think I feel like I'm still in that process really. I think the hardest part, I was just talking about this recently actually, is like charging people money.
Sure,
It's
absolutely.
like really
That's
scary
actually
as a
kind of what
business
I
owner.
was
Yeah.
like segueing to, or yeah. But so
Yeah,
continue. Sorry.
yeah, it's, like, scary and uncomfortable, especially because, like, the basis of my business is truly to help moms,
Yeah.
and so it's like, I'm asking a mom who's going through a postpartum experience, like, "Oh, but you have to pay me," but at the same time, it's my career, it's my living, so, you pay doctors, you pay, photographers, you pay the chef, you pay everyone, and so you still need to make a living, but my goal is to still help moms, so I feel like that's been the hardest part, and I did start at, like, a very low price point. And my husband was kind of like, "You're almost making yourself look like you don't know what you're doing. You're like
Interesting.
underselling yourself." Like, it's almost so cheap because like a lactation consultant can be anywhere from like 250 to 500 for a visit. And like my consults were $50. And he's like, "That's like hundreds below, Sammy. Like you don't have to be the top, but you really like you have to value yourself. You're knowledgeable. You have a certification. Like your time is worth it." And so I feel like for me, I'm like, but they just had a baby. And
Yeah.
so for me, I think that's the hardest is like my love and actually being a business owner it's a hard balance there. So I really lately I've been trying to have like different offers where it's like, I have a catalog or a resource that's either free or something that's like $5. I do flange fitting, which if you want to know the nitty gritty, just means really getting someone's nipple size to make sure their pump fits appropriately. But I have like a $25 offer for that. And then I have like a virtual consult that's more. And so I'm trying to do a range to help different moms in different areas of their life because I get it. I was laid off and I'm a mom and I know the cost. So I think for me, it's been fun. Like the passion is fun. Talking to moms is amazing and I absolutely love it. And then the business side is like, ooh, I have to really be a business owner right now. So that's the struggle.
On the flip side, also interesting is being that I have my own daughter
Yeah.
and we went through a lot of the struggles that you just mentioned,
Yeah.
is interesting that in that moment, the new parents, particularly the mom, if it's because it's really her body that she's
Yeah.
going through it, kind of willing to pay anything
Exactly.
because they just want the help.
Yeah.
And in the scheme of things, when you're paying for all, it's almost like a wedding
Yeah.
in the sense of when you just this is just encouraging
Yeah.
from my experience to encourage you because I totally relate to that.
Yeah.
On all aspects, I've done so many different business
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
and you want to help businesses, especially. Um, it's funny because like I do a lot of social media work for clients, and they're like, oh, when I get a new potential client, they're like, I would love, I need help, and I'm like, oh, really? Like, what? And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, business is so slow. Like, I really could use some help. Like, and I'm like, yeah, absolutely. It's
Yeah.
like, but I don't have any money to pay you. I'm like, okay, well,
Yeah.
like, hold on, we got to work this out here,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Like this is
because
my
I
job.
acknowledge the
Mhm.
fact that business is slow and social media will
Yeah.
help, but also like. If I helped you for free, then my business would be slow. So
Exactly.
like, it's a
Exactly.
give and take,
Yes. Yes.
But that being said, it's almost I think it's almost like the wedding where you're spending so much money already.
Yeah.
What's a little extra for the extra lights for the DJ or the extra this, right? And it's
Yeah.
almost like that with the baby.
Yeah, I mean, and I do say too, it's like, I mean, the cost of formula is way more than it would be for the one consult of $125 than a year of formula. So if you
Sure.
figure out like, the cost of that. So it does. Like, I mean, it is hard to charge people, but I feel that struggle too. I feel constantly people will message me and be like, "Hey, I just gave birth. Do you think I should do this?" And I'm like, "I think you should book a consult." But I also like you just gave birth a week ago, so maybe I should answer you. Like,
Yeah, it's a
it's
balance
the
between
hard.
both of those
Mhm.
things.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. But like even even the little information here and there, I
Yes.
think that is helpful because it also builds rapport.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
like, okay, this I can trust this person
Yes.
because but it's where's that line? Because
Exactly. It
like
gets
how far do you go in that information before it's like Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about like what a consult would look like.
Yeah, so I do different types of consults. So I do prenatal, postpartum immediately, and then also I do back to work too. A lot of moms are like, "Oh my God, I haven't pumped. I've been exclusively breastfeeding. I'm freaking out. I'm going back to work in 2 weeks. I don't even know how to use my pump. I don't know what kind of schedule to get on." So I do various types of consults. I'm really like, my passion is educating moms prenatally, because I think it doesn't really exist.
So tell me
And
about
yeah,
all three of those.
yeah. So prenatal consults are anywhere from like 20 weeks, I recommend, to like 30 weeks, because then it gives you a little time to buy any products like pumps that you need, before you give birth. And I go over measuring your flange size, making sure you have the right equipment at your house, how to use the pump. So,
All of this
yeah,
stuff is would have been so much more helpful to have
yes,
prior to having the 3-day-old and
yes,
realizing, hey, breastfeeding. This is from a personal experience.
yes,
Like breastfeeding's not working.
yep.
My wife ended up being an exclusive pumper,
There you go.
and
See,
but like that she was triple feeding for a while,
that's
and it was
that
it
we
was
call that
chaos.
hell. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Triple feeding is hell. Yeah. No, it's really bad, and I think there's just literally no prenatal education for it, and I'm not sure why.
Mm,
And I thought about it like after I gave birth, because I went through that. Obviously, I have a passion for it now. I've been there, I've experienced it. And I remember like going to my OBGYN appointment at like 28 weeks, like so naive, and being like, "Hey, I just got my insurance link to get a pump and
mm,
there's so many, what should I do?" And my doctor was just like, "Oh, do you follow this person on Instagram? Like she reviews pumps." And I'm like, "No, but you're my doctor. Like what pump do you recommend?" And then I like had a lactation consultant come when I had first given birth, and they were great for like latch and positioning. They never even looked at my pump. They never
mhm,
told me how to use my pump, and they didn't get my flange size. I was using the size that came with the pump for 9 months. I didn't know there was different sizes.
mm.
Um, and I was like, "But who does this? Like, who goes over pumps with you?" And I asked my pediatrician. I was like, "Maybe they know, because breast milk is for babies. Like, who actually does this?" And the more I found out, like, there is no one.
Sure.
And so then I took my certified breastfeeding like certificate course, and I was like, there was one article on pumping.
Oh, so you were even asking this question before you even gave birth.
Yeah, I was like very interested in it.
Sure.
I knew I wanted to breastfeed. And I always hear, when people are like, "Are you going to breastfeed?" And the answer is always like, "Well, I hope so. I don't really know. I don't know what to do." Right. And I think it's so funny because everyone says, "What's your birth plan?" Right? How are you
My
like you
wife is a
have
labor
Chase.
and
Yeah.
delivery nurse, and you should hear that's the dreaded 3 words.
Right, because what's a birth plan? Nothing ever goes to
No,
plan,
of
first
course.
off, but, like, everyone makes you have one. They sell templates on Etsy, make your
Mm,
birth plan, right? Your doctors tell you, "Have you thought about birth? Have you done this?"
sure,
You meet with a doula, like, everyone talks about birth, but not one person talks about, "What's your plan for feeding your baby?"
sure.
No one. No one talks about how are you gonna feed your baby when they're born, until you literally give birth and you're in a hospital room hysterical crying because you just gave birth, and they're like, "So are you nursing? Here's a baby. Let me shove them on you. Do you need formula? Oh, they're crying, they're not eating enough. Here, why don't you pump? Why don't you do this?" What? And you're like, "What? What's going on? This is so overwhelming." And so I just feel like it would be empowering for women to just have the education.
Sure.
And who gives it? No one. So I started doing the prenatal consults and prenatal pumping workshops. And then I created a basics of pumping course. So it's like online, you could just buy it and watch it as you want. And then you still have access like after you give birth. So if you're like, "Oh, I know she said something about this, I want to rewatch this module," that's really helpful. But in my one on one consults, we measure flange size. We make sure you are selecting a pump through your insurance that is affordable for
Mm,
you, that will help you, all of that. I recommend like a hand pump or a milk collector to bring to the hospital. I go over how the pump works, what the settings mean. I didn't know what they meant for 7 months of using my pump. I was like, "Stimulation, what's that? Expression, what's that?" So we go over all of that. And then I go over like milk production, like what happens. You give birth, you don't just have milk, right? You have colostrum. It takes a couple days for the milk to come in, which might mean the baby's eating more often because you're waiting your like all the things to expect, that then when you don't give birth, you're like, "Oh my God, they keep wanting to eat more. That means I don't have enough," right? Because then it gets in mom's head. And
sure.
that's oftentimes a lot of the cause of postpartum anxiety, depression, and it's truly just a lack of education.
Mhm.
And it's like, why are we not giving that to moms?
Yeah.
So that's why I really stress the prenatal. And then I do postpartum consults, which are, like what you're saying, right after you're like, "Oh my gosh, nursing's not working," or "This isn't going the way I thought it was going to go. I might need to pump more." But like you said, they're like, I haven't turned on a pump. I don't know what this is. I'm 3 days postpartum, so it's those, like, last-minute consults that it's, like, 7 o'clock and someone books at 9:30 PM. I'm like to my husband, "I have a consult tonight," and the mom's, like, crying, and I'm like, "No, it's okay. Breathe. We got this. We will figure it out." And we go through, like, "Where's your pump? Let's get it. Let's keep trying to latch the baby for a little bit, so if that's what you want, like, if that's your goal, we'll continue that, but this is how you pump, this is how you'll keep your supply," and we kind of figure out a schedule, and I do 2 weeks of texting support after
Wow.
each consult because you hang up and you have questions,
Sure.
So we do texting for 2 weeks, making sure they're getting the supply, everything's working. And then the third type of consult is like that later on in the journey. Maybe they haven't pumped at all, they're going back to work, they're trying to figure out a schedule. Maybe they don't really pump, they don't want to pump, they're just nursing, but they have weddings coming up, or they're going to need a babysitter and they have never introduced a bottle, they've never pumped, they want to know what to do. So I kind of do all stages of the pumping journey. It's not just like a one time thing. So I offer a consult package, which could be three. So you can plan with the prenatal, postpartum, and back to work. Just a one consult. I have the pumping course and the flange fitting offer.
Obviously, this is a subject to change based on
Mhm.
availability, based
Yeah.
on, things. But what's the current going rate for these things?
Yeah, so my current one-on-one consult is 125, which, was hard for me to increase, but definitely the most affordable consult out there. And then it's the 2 weeks of texting support with it, and the flange fitting comes with it as well. And then the package is $400 for the 3 consults, and each one gets a week of text support after. Yeah,
Very
and the
cool.
flange fitting is only $25, and then my course is 49.99.
So, how are you getting this out there? Because obviously, it's great information, but great information is kind of useless if it's not in anybody's hands.
Yes.
So, so what's the plan?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
That's what I'm working on. So it's been strictly social media referrals. I had someone that was like, "Oh, you helped my cousin, and I'm in, Jersey," or "You helped my cousin, and I'm in South Carolina." I was like, "Oh, I'm getting to all the states," and it's so nice to be able to do virtual. I had a consult in Dominican Republic, so it's really been social media. But I want to get it out there more. So I actually this weekend went to the Prego Expo in New York City, and I had my first booth, and I felt like a real businesswoman. But I got to talk to so many moms that are expecting and really give them that education and give my resources out
So
there.
tell me about. I don't know what
Yeah.
that is. The Prego Expo.
Yeah, it
So
was a huge expo. There was a couple speakers.
and
So
pregnant women go
yes,
like what?
yeah, there was a lot of moms and husbands, moms and friends, but almost all pregnant, and all the equipment and strollers and baby Bjorn, the carriers, all the brands were there. Baby Einstein toys, all the different soap brands for babies. And so they all had different booths, pushing whatever their product was. But you could see up a baby strollers or Zoe strollers and the carriers. And I think right now those kind of expos are so important because like all the baby stores have closed.
Mm,
Like I feel like a lot of moms I know are like trying to do their registry and you can't like go do that anymore. Buy my baby clothes. Like there's not really a lot of stores. So it was cool, and a lot of moms went, and they got to go to all the different things. People are giving things away, right? You get discounts on things. So I had codes yesterday for my course, and people were raffling things off. I was giving off a free consult if you signed up for my newsletter. So I got to meet a lot of moms and also network with like the brands there and talk to them and other things. And I actually had a really interesting conversation with a lactation consultant who wasn't there to sell herself, was there because she was expecting, right? But she was expecting her second, and her first is already 7. Half these pumps did not exist 7 years ago, right? So, wearable pumps, all these pumps that you can put in your bras, all these things did not exist. They're all very new. I mean, my mom is like, "What are any of these things? This did not exist 30 years ago." But even in the last 7 years, there was no portable pumps. So, she was like, "What?" I had all the pumps on display that I have. She was like, "What are all of these things? It's amazing." And we really got to talking about how I'm a certified breastfeeding counselor and I can help with latch and different breastfeeding positions, but she was an NICU nurse, RN, and IBILC, right? So she has a lot more certifications as a lactation consultant where she could really help look at tongue ties and lip ties. And I said, I would be happy to refer someone to you. She was like, I have no idea about pumping. She's like, I never was able to pump. I didn't even know there was different size flange. And I'm like, it's so interesting that someone with that much certification, you just don't get that education on pumps. And I think it's because it's so new and they just haven't updated like lactation courses to match the pumps that are coming out. So she was like, no, I'm literally a lactation consultant and I don't know. And I was like, so you can refer moms that have pumping problems to me. And I'm happy to, if I can't help a nursing mom, send them to you. And just making those connections was great also.
I'm curious what a lactation course looks like in the sense of like, I'm pretty sure my wife is as a did I
Yeah.
mention that my wife is an RN?
Yeah. No, I
So
know
she
she was she's labor and,
she's
yeah.
a
So
labor and
labor and
delivery
delivery
nurse.
nurse.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she gets certified every year or
Hmm.
however how often it is for breastfeed, like a
Yeah.
breastfeeding consultant or whatever
Yeah.
it's called,
Hmm.
certified. How is that? Is that executed through an online course or is that executed?
Yeah, so I think there are some in-person courses, but they're mostly online and there's 3 different levels. So right now I was, going through unemployment, had a baby at home, so I did the lowest level and I think I might go back for more because it's just, adding on credits, but it's like certified breastfeeding counselor, lactation consultant, IBILC. So really RNs can be like that top one. I would need a lot more courses to be that level. But I could take only a couple more like online courses or credits to be a lactation consultant. So right now I'm just a certified breastfeeding counselor, but it was all online. It was like a certain amount of hours. It was like discussion boards, really like, if you're in online grad school, like you had to read articles, respond, and then you had to do like uh like a experience. So I had to have a mom that would work with me, record it, and kind of give me feedback to the teacher, fill out a form for me. So I had to do 3 of those, like practice consults. Um, and then you just kind of get your certificate in the mail. And the one above me, you have to go like in person to take a test. And then IBILC, I think you have to be an RN to do that.
So with that being said, an interesting demographic, I'm curious your opinion on this. For you to reach, in addition to reaching moms, I'd be curious to see if you'd be able to sell your product to those lactation
Yeah.
courses. Where,
Hmm.
for example, every year that my wife gets her, or however often it is, I don't know,
Yeah.
if it's every year that she gets renewed for. By the way, I think she's only on a breast. What is it
Yeah.
for the lowest tier?
Certified breastfeeding
I think
counselor.
that's what
Yeah.
she is.
Yeah.
But I don't know if she's gone it further
Yeah.
than that, or if it's even required.
Yeah.
I actually think you might get just a pay raise for
Yeah.
being one, so I think
Yeah.
that's why she did it.
Yeah.
But don't quote me on that. But it'd be interesting. That's a whole nother interesting
Yeah.
avenue. You could that's a large paycheck selling to those
Yeah, I
companies.
actually today I had my son's 15-month-old pediatrician appointment, and so we got some shots, that was fun. But I told her, "I am doing this now. Can I leave some cards here for
Oh
moms?" So
wow.
I actually left my cards at the pediatrician office for, like, specific moms that need help with pumping or anything like that. But that is a really interesting idea, and I think that sometimes when I tell people about pumping, the initial reaction was like, well, why wouldn't I just go to a lactation consultant? Why wouldn't I just see this? Um, and lactation consultants can sometimes be like, you don't know what you're doing about this. Like, you're founding your business. You're not an RN. You're not like, you don't have these levels of certification. But it's nice to have these conversations with other lactation consultants and say like, "No, we actually complement each other." Right? Like you have talents that I don't have and I have talents that you don't have and we both just want to help moms.
Yeah.
So if I have a mom that is really struggling with lip ties and stuff that I can't assess or diagnose like even legally and I can't, but I'm happy to refer them to you. And if you have moms that latching and nursing's going great, but they want to start pumping for work and you're not sure how to help them, like we could be a team, right? Like why can't we be almost like a power lactation team to help these moms? So I have recently in the last couple weeks found myself thinking like I should be partnering more with hospitals, with lactation consultants, right? Like with all of that. And my good friend just gave birth and she ended up with an emergency C-section. She was in the hospital and she was having trouble with latching. And they brought in this big hospital pump with like all the things. And they just left her there, like, here, pump. And she called me and she was like, I didn't think I was going to have visitors at the hospital, but I need you. Can you come to the hospital? I was like, coming now. And I brought a hand pump, not like a big, because you only have colostrum. So it's like a big pump, can really not get much yet. And I helped her hand pump and taught her how to use it. And we got 15 milliliters of colostrum that she was able to bottle feed her baby because they'd already brought her formula and she didn't want that. So she was upset and emotional. And she was like, I wish someone that was here, that's a lactation consultant, took the time to just explain to me what you did. Like, I just explained to her how the hand pump works, how it stimulates what a baby would feed like, when to pull fast, when to pull slow on the hand pump, how long to use it, and how to self express, and different ways to get milk if the baby's not latching before just jumping to formula. And she was like, I saw 2 lactation consultants that are from the hospital, and no one taught me anything that you just taught me.
Mhm.
And she was like, please don't stop what you're doing. She was like, I know that you're new and you're getting scared and you need a job and you need money, but she was like, I'm telling you, like, not as a friend, like, you just changed my journey in 5 minutes, and 2 lactation consultants didn't. And obviously I left crying, but I was like, "That was so nice." But I was like, "You know what? They don't know. They don't know about pumping, and it's not because they don't care, it's because they haven't been giving the education for it." So, they're amazing with latching. They also need education on pumping, and so you're right, like, it's really a good business to talk to those lactation consultants as well and hospitals as well, yeah. Mhm.
So what does your social media look like? What is your obviously I took a look at it beforehand, but for the
Yeah.
audience, this is like tell me about what your plan is, how you're getting yourself out there, and what you're posting about.
Yeah, I think the number one thing for me is just being authentic. Um, I like am just an open book. So typically on my social media, I'm sharing on my stories all day, but just like what my life looks like. I'm at home all day with 2 kids. I'm doing real estate, so I'm trying to be on the phone with clients and I have screaming kids or my daughter's like, "I have to go potty." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, sorry person I'm talking to on the phone right now. That is so embarrassing." But I actually recently started my own podcast as well, and one of the guests I had on it said something that really resonated with me. And I know you're home a little bit, you said, with your child, so maybe this would stick for you too, but she said, "I was so scared of being on the phone and that clients" she does mortgages, "weren't gonna wanna work with me because 'cause they're gonna be like, 'She's chaotic. This is insane. Like, she doesn't care about me. She cares about her kids. This isn't gonna work,' right? And that's the mindset you have, right? When your kids start screaming, you're like, 'Oh my god, this person's gonna hate me,' and your heart starts racing." And she was like, "But then I don't wanna work with them."
Mhm.
She was
Wow,
like,
that's a
"This
great
is a
perspective.
two-way street," right? Like, I am a mom, and that's a huge part of my life. That does not mean I'm gonna fight any less for you. I also care about that, right? And so why can't I do both? But it has to be we both have to work
Yeah,
together.
mutual
So
respect.
yeah. And I was
That's a
like, "I
great
like
perspective.
that."
I'm gonna steal that for sure because there
Yeah.
are so many conversations that I have on the phone with potential
Yep.
clients or
Mhm.
potential podcast guests.
Yep.
And my daughter, as you mentioned, my wife and I split childcare,
Yep.
so I'm home 2 or 3 days a week with her.
Yep.
And she's two,
Yep.
almost two, and there's every conversation I have,
Yep.
unless it's during the short nap time,
Yep.
every conversation I have,
Yep.
she's in the
"You
background.
gave me the blue cup instead of the green cup,"
Well, she can't
right?
speak
Yeah.
that much
Oh,
just
it's
yet, but
coming. Yeah.
so I'm curious, but now just talking from a marketing
Yeah.
perspective, from my experience and my expertise in the field, are you sharing things like how do you like how to do a flange size, or is that only in the courses?
Yeah, so that's kind of one of those things too where we were talking about before where it's like some questions are fine to answer in DMs and some you're like book a consult, right? And I've finding that's one of my hard challenges is what to share without giving all of my things away that people would pay for, right? Like if I give away exactly how to use the pump and exactly how to flange fit yourself, like why would people pay me to do that? So there's this fine line, but I do like promote reminding moms to check their flange size. I do have a free nipple ruler, so you can download it and like I showed like how to use it at home. Um, I do go over like the different pumps I'm using. So I'm still pumping. So I'll share like I'm using the baby Buddha pump right now, or I'm using the Spectra. This is what I'm finding. The other day I just tested a wearable. I shared the pros and cons of them. I do different pump reviews. So I'll do like reels on different reviews. When new wearables come out, like Eufy just came out with a new heated wearable pump that like is heated because it helps with milk flow and controlled by an app, and technology is
Wow.
crazy. So I did a whole review on that pump. So it's really like sharing about different pumps. And then same for nursing. I'm nursing my son, so when he went through like nursing strike or got really distracted, and like I have a toddler, so I'm trying to feed him, and she runs by, and all of a sudden he's off, right, and he's not eating anymore. How do you combat nursing with distractions? How do you combat nursing strikes? I'm open about I still feed to sleep. I still feed in the middle of the night. I share kind of everything I'm going through on my nursing journey. And then I share like hacks and tips. So, like simple things like when I put the breast milk in the fridge, it's good for 4 days. But I use dry erase marker to write the date on it, which, like, so then I don't forget. Like, when I first started out, I was like, how do I remember when this cup is from versus this cup? And I was writing with like scotch tape and taping it on, and the tape wouldn't come off, and I was washing it. So, it's like a little hack, just dry erase marker with the date and you can wipe it right off. I share about like the pitcher method and pooling milk together, just different hacks and tips for like surviving as a pumping mom, what coolers I like to use and stuff like that.
What do you see next in the industry for you? What's something you'd like to capitalize on next?
Yeah, I would really like to have like a really large mom community. And so I don't know what that fully looks like yet, whether it's like on a specific platform or on a like Facebook page, or I just made like a mom community Facebook page because I'm starting that idea, but a place where like moms from all over can come and ask questions and find guidance, but also like meet moms. Like I'm like almost envisioning like a Slack meets like a circle meets a Facebook, right? Like an area where moms can like see there's a whole, registry of who the moms are. Like, oh, there's other moms in Nassau County. Hey, like I'm in Nassau County. I have a 2-year old. Can we go for a walk? Right? Because a lot of the postpartum and a lot of depression and anxiety that comes from it is feeling alone. But like you're not alone and we're all going through it. It just feels that way when you're in it. And so that's actually why I also made my podcast, which is Struggle Out Loud, because so many moms struggle in silence. So it's me and a former co-teacher who also left teaching, both with 2 under 2, and we're just like talking about all the real shit that comes up every day and having those phone calls, trying to work from home, tantrums, life, leaving teaching, navigating all the emotions. And so I think the next thing is like really building a community where moms really feel supported.
Will that be a free community to join, you think? Or you think that'll be behind a paywall?
Yeah, I'm thinking that there would be levels to it. I'm thinking there should definitely be a free aspect because I think the moms that usually need community the most are sometimes the moms that can't afford that community. The moms that aren't going to all the music classes and play classes because they're $90 for a month or something like that. So I think there definitely needs to be a free or affordable component. Um, but maybe it's also like there's a small fee for postpartum like lactation community, right? Where it's like you get workshops from other top lactation consultants or tips and access
Mhm.
to courses like my pumping course or weaning course that I'm working on, and all different types of things that you can get with a monthly payment, and then like a free community and different. Yeah, I think it
Yeah.
could entail
It
different
sounds
things.
it's Are you familiar? I'm sure that wherever you're listening to the podcast, but
Yeah.
it's very similar to the mom communities in the sense of like East Northport moms. Are you
Hmm.
familiar with
Yeah,
those
like the
like
Facebook
Facebook
groups.
groups?
Yes.
Which back when I was giving guitar lessons, I was a member, even though I
Yes.
was like not a mom.
Yes.
But I was a business
But
owner.
that's where people are looking
But
for
that's
people like you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Hmm.
Or photographer now. I
Yes.
get a lot of
Hmm.
references through photography with that. But it's interesting because a lot of people like, oh, what's a great? I'm looking for a lawn
Yeah.
care guy, and
Hmm.
somebody then sends a message. It is a really cool concept that if that was super niche down to just
Hmm.
momhood or
Right.
motherhood, that you could ask the questions of, hey, what brand stroller do you like? Because this
Right.
one's not working for my. And now I have two kids or twins or whatever, and
Yep.
like this Nuna
Mhm.
doesn't make one like that. So what do you
Exactly.
would be a really cool, I think, a really great community
Yeah.
opportunity.
Yeah, I think it would be a nice place for moms. And I think I don't know if it just wasn't spoken about, but postpartum anxiety and depression is increasing. And I think a lot of it is that it was always there, it just wasn't shared. But now that people are talking about it more, it seems as if it's like a lot higher. And I think a lot of it has to do with social media comparing and everything that comes with it. My kid's not walking yet, my kid's not doing this yet. So there's a lot of more anxiety. But I think there just needs to be more community also and more moms just being there for moms. So that's kind of like a big goal. And would almost be like a platform that has like multiple courses, right? Like nursing course, a weaning course, a basics of pumping course. It could be increasing my milk supply, like, and you can pay to have access to all those things, but you can also just be part of the community.
Yeah,
So yeah.
absolutely. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
All the different tiers within there.
Yeah.
So going back to your three different courses that you
Hmm.
have the prenatal, the
Hmm.
right after birth, and then the going back to work.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. The consults.
If
Hmm.
you had one tip for each of those consults, like right, but like or a woman inside of that stage,
Yeah.
a new mom or expecting mom, or my kid's 6 months old, I'm going back to work.
Yeah.
What would one tip for each of them be?
So for prenatal, a tip, if they hadn't reached out yet, it would be to get the education, right? To prepare yourself, to think about feeding and to be open to different things. And so a lot of moms go into thinking, I'm only going to nurse. But in the reality of today's world, even if you are an exclusive nurser, you're never always going to be with your baby, right? You might have a bridal shower or a wedding. And so be open to learning everything and absorbing all the knowledge. And so I think prenatally, it's a lot of just like be open to education. If you just had a baby and you're feeling overwhelmed, my advice is to give yourself grace. And I think that's one of the hardest things is to realize how amazing a mom is actually doing in the moment. And that's something I always tell them right away in the consult is take a breath you're doing more than you've ever done in your life, even though it feels like you're just sitting at home. Like you just had a baby, your body just went through labor and delivery, like you're producing milk, you're taking care of a human that you've never done before. This is a lot more than whatever your job was. It's all new, it's all crazy, and you're surviving it and keeping a human alive. You're doing amazing. So give yourself grace, is always my advice. Um, and going back to work, my advice is also to take it one day at a time and to not get caught up in I have this goal to make it this far or this goal to make it this far because a lot of moms going back to work want to breastfeed for a year, but they go back at 4 months and that seems daunting. 4 months to a year, how am I going to do this with work? And my advice is always take it one day at a time and all of a sudden it goes faster than you think because you get into routine, you get into flow, and so stop looking so far ahead and just take it one day at a time.
It goes remarkably all the cliches are cliches because they're true.
Yeah.
And they say when you have your kid, oh, it'll blink of
Yep.
an eye, they'll be
Mhm.
walking, and it's like, oh wow, we really are
Yeah.
here. I heard a really great quote that says the days are long, but the years are short,
Yes.
and it
Mhm.
is very
That's
very
one of my
true.
favorite quotes actually, and I have a little mug that says it. And I think about that often because I lost 2 jobs, since I've had my daughter, started a business, started real estate, and so I've been through, like, just myself, a lot of change in the last 3 years, while I also had 2 children and watching them go through all these changes, and I constantly sometimes am so overwhelmed, and I'm like, "How am I going to do all of this?" Right? And sometimes it just feels like this is impossible, but then I'm watching my daughter blow bubbles for my 15-month-old at the park, and they're both cracking up, and I'm like, "If I was still teaching, I would never be witnessing this right now."
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't have the ability to watch this. So, am I overwhelmed? Am I not getting the phone calls done that I need to right now because I'm at the park and I'm stressing and I'm like, "I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do this." 100% I'm feeling stressed. At the same time, this is the moment that I'm gonna remember in 10 years, not that I didn't make that phone call.
Yeah.
So I try and just be like turning it off, and I'm really into time blocking right now with my calendar and just being like, these 3 hours are for my kids. If I can't call someone back and I call them back right after that, it's that same mentality, like, if they don't wanna work with me, they won't wanna work with me. I'm not calling them back for a week, it's 2 hours, but I'm also a mom, and that's
Yeah.
kind of balancing it all, but it's hard.
So you briefly touched on the fact, where I briefly touched in the intro about your publishing books.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I actually my 3rd book is being illustrated and should be coming out by May, hopefully.
Wow.
So, yeah, I actually, during the pandemic, wrote my first book. So, I was an elementary school teacher and suddenly we were virtual, which was super weird to teach kindergartners through a computer that don't know how to turn their mic on and off, and they're like, "Look at my stuffed animal." And I'm like, "This is really
That's
going excellent."
crazy.
But
You did that for what, 2 years?
yeah, it was absolutely insane. And then in 2022, we were back in schools, but the school district I was in, they had the option to stay remote. And so parents signed them up for like virtual school and they hired one virtual teacher per grade. And since I was STEM as a specialist teacher, I had to teach that virtual class. So I teach like 3 in-person classes and then get on my computer in my classroom and teach a virtual class. I'm like, this is so
That's
odd. Yeah,
crazy. So STEM is
yeah,
science,
technology.
technology, engineering, and math.
Yes,
Hey, I'm
good.
learning, man. I'm
Yeah, I had
learning.
a robotics club. We
Wow.
did like volcanoes, earthquakes. Yeah, it's super fun. I was the fun lab. Yeah, for sure. I
That's
loved
what
it.
you did though, like that,
Yep.
like in school, like all the kids came to that.
Yep.
So that wasn't a thing when I was in
No,
school.
same. Mm-mm. And it really was new when I first started in like charter schools, and then I was the first teacher in that position in Long Beach public schools, and they're kind of just popping up more all across Long Island now to be like a STEM focused teacher. So the same way you went to gym, music, art,
Wow.
you go to STEM.
Wow.
And so we had different units, and it covered like plant life cycle to earth and space to um, landforms and plate tectonics to robotics and engineering and building designs, the engineering design process. It's really fun and it's a great outlet for a lot of kids, especially kids who like struggle with like literacy or math in the classroom or behavioral and can't sit still and they don't want to listen to a read aloud and they have all these like, it's the kid that's the troublemaker. Perfect in my classroom. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, yeah, because you have robots and they want to use the robot, right? Like, of course. But it is a challenge and it does make those kids think. So it was super fun. I absolutely loved it, but I didn't like being in the classroom anymore and a lot of things had changed. But I was home and I was teaching virtually and so I had a little bit more time. I wasn't commuting anymore, right? Like those hours in the beginning of the day. I didn't have kids yet. And so I found myself like I need a project. So I wrote my first book and it was called Going Green in Quarantine. And it was about a little girl who just sees masks that were littered everywhere because I don't know if you remember, but you would go to like a pizza place and there was blue masks all over the parking lot. And it drove me crazy. And so she decided she wanted to invent biodegradable masks.
Oh,
And
wow.
so she goes through the engineering design process of coming up with a plan and making a design and testing it and it failing. And she gets upset and she has to go back to the drawing board and she ends up creating biodegradable masks. So it's called Going Green in Quarantine.
That's cool.
And it was fun. It was a fun project. And so then my daughter was born, and I wrote a second book called Watch Out for the Bug. And it's a programming and coding book about robots. So
Wow,
she
that's
is,
cool.
yeah, trying to program a robot with her cousin Peyton to pick up the laundry in the room before their mom finds out. And it keeps crashing and saying, like, oh no, there's a bug. Because if you are not familiar with robotics, which I wouldn't have been if I didn't teach it, when there's a bug, it's a mistake in the program. And so they have to learn how to debug it and fix it. And then their mom's like, you got all the laundry away. I'm so proud of you. And they're kind of like, yeah, it was us, but it was the robot. So it's called Watch Out for the Bug. And
So are
so, yeah.
these gauged towards like infants or younger kids? What does that look like?
Yeah, so it's more of like I would say like a read aloud book for like elementary school, but
Okay.
I would say starting in like probably second, third grade
Okay.
reading level, can read it on their own, but it's great to like read to 4, 5, 6, 7 year olds. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Can we get a preview of the third book?
Yeah. So I felt like, how do I write a book for my daughter and not my son? So of course I had to write a third book. So this one's about both of them. It's about Remy and Cole, and it's called The Big Dig. And it just kind of previews on STEM, construction, and imagination. So it starts with them in a sand pit, and all of a sudden they're transformed into a land years ago with construction equipment, but dinosaurs and fossils and footprints, and looking at different trace fossils and figuring out what must have been there because there was a fish fossil. So there must be water, and kind of figuring out all of that stuff. And then they kind of poof back to reality. So I'm really excited about it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what does that look like? As like when you have this idea, you
Yes.
write the book, you get it illustrated,
Yeah.
you get it published, which I'd love for you to just talk on
Yeah.
that. But that, how do you sell it? Who buys it? How does it even,
Yeah.
what happens?
I'm gonna be so honest. I am not like so great at marketing my own books. And I should be. It's something that I'm not promoting a lot. It's funny because if you look at my socials, you wouldn't even know I'm a children's book author really, but it's kind of a hobby when it could be a career.
Sure.
So I do my goal with this book is to market it more for sure.
What does that
But
look like?
yeah, the process of it,
Well, what's your marketing plan before we even get to
yeah.
the process of it?
So my marketing plan is one to be more on socials how I am with Mama of All Trades and kind of encompass that part of Mama of All Trades because like I was saying, I didn't want to be just pumping and nursing in that bucket. Um, and then also reaching out, I know a slew of educators, right, from my teaching career, 2 different school districts,
Oh
2
wow,
different
cool. Yeah. There you
superintendents.
go.
Would you be interested in having this book in your classroom? And
That's
happy to
cool.
do read alouds, right, and getting into all over Long Island into school districts. So marketing myself to schools, going to the libraries. Both my books are at Harbor Fields Library right now because that's the district I'm in, but I could be going to more libraries, right? So definitely getting myself out there for this book to libraries, school districts, and social media is probably my marketing plan. They're all self-published. So they're all self-published on Amazon. My first I did Barnes& and Noble as well.
So can you elaborate
Yeah.
what that means on the first
Yeah,
people aren't
so
familiar?
being part of a publishing company is very hard. It's very hard to get picked up and found. You have to like write a letter, get picked, and all of this. And I decided I don't want to wait for someone to say that my book is good enough because it is good enough. So I looked into self-publishing, and it's actually really pretty simple. Through Amazon, it's called Kindle Direct, but you can go on, you can get yourself an ISBN number, you can, look at what formatting they require to submit, the guidelines for sizing, how many pages it is required, and you submit it for approval through Amazon through Kindle Direct. And then once you get approved, you can sell directly on Amazon. And the amazing thing about self-publishing through Amazon is you don't need to like warehouse your books or worry about shipping. Like if someone orders my book on Amazon's Amazon's warehouse just prints it and sends it to them, and I've never had to order a book or house
I've
it or
heard of,
anything.
so it's interesting. I didn't know Amazon did that, but I've heard
Yeah.
about the whole aspect of nothing's printed until
Yep.
it's
Yep.
ordered, which is remarkable.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I'm not dealing with like an upfront cost of
Sure.
printing hundreds of books and then, oh my God, I have to sell these. And where am I putting these in my house with all my toddler toys? So it's a very cool concept. And you get like an author discount price for yourself. So, of course, I bought some of my own books that I can give to people or bring to schools in the library. So I'll buy like kind of a bulk, like 30 books or something like that.
Did you bring a
But
book
yeah,
today?
I didn't. I should have
Oh
brought you
man, you should
books.
have. I would
But I
have
also
loved
didn't know
to.
you had a daughter. So now
That's
I
fair.
have to,
Touche.
yeah,
That's
I
fair.
have to share them with you. But yeah, so I used to bring them around, so I'm gonna be better about that. But yeah, I bought some for myself, but it's really a cool concept that you can just kind of let Amazon handle it. And
Yeah.
so truthfully, the hardest parts about publishing a book were finding an illustrator because that is not my talent. I cannot even draw a stick figure. And then figuring out formatting. Like that was also not kind of my talent. I'm not like a computer whiz in that way. I could do robots, but
So do
not
you
that.
have to upload that format to?
Yeah, to Amazon, but it has to be up like in the right, like the bleed or no bleed and the right formatting. And they give you templates, and that was kind of just outside of my wheelhouse. So I've
Sure.
reached out to friends who are in marketing or have more of that expertise on the computer, and they've helped me on that end. My first book, my sister-in-law's sister actually illustrated for me. And then my second book, I freelanced on Fiverr
Oh wow.
for an illustrator. And this time, it was actually my kid's nanny who was in school for design, and she would draw on the iPad with my daughter all the time. And I was like, "Well, you're like really good at this. Would you want to illustrate my book?" And she was like, "Why not?" So now she's illustrating
That's
my
cool.
third book. So finding the illustrator and formatting it for me were the two hardest things, but actually self-publishing on Amazon is a pretty seamless process. And then you don't even have to have anything in your
It's
house.
remarkable.
Yeah.
Have you ever considered combining the two, either breastfeeding or pumping and the children's books?
Yes, so it's actually very funny you say that. I was just talking to my good friend the other day about that idea that he had, and I'm in my notes. That's where I keep all my book ideas. Is so no one steal my phone. That's all my book ideas. I feel like the person in Elf with his little black book of like book ideas. But about combining that idea of nursing and pumping moms, and I think there's two kind of sides to it. One, I think it could be great for moms explaining this to a toddler, right? A baby's on the way, they're planning on nursing and pumping. What is that going to look like in the house? And how do I explain that to my first child? So I haven't really found a book like that out there. But also, historically, like we're not the only people who breastfeed. Monkeys and all other, like, nursing is a natural thing. So it could be like a character book of animals and nursing families and this and that, or it could be kind of a mom explaining. So I have all these ideas in my head. But yes, that's a goal down the line.
Another interesting book idea would be something like "Mommy Goes to Work,"
Yeah.
and talking to you kind of can preface it with the kids that are 2 months old, three
Yep.
months old, 5 months old, and then
Yeah.
as they get older. I mean, even a 4 month old's really not going to
Yeah.
understand anything at that point. But I guess gauged a little bit maybe towards older.
Yeah.
If mom has to go back to work at some point,
Yeah.
you can a month before, 2 months before, you can start to like preface it with and help the kid understand.
It's crazy how young they understand, right?
Oh, it's insane. Well, it's it's
Mhm.
it's kind of scary actually because
Like,
it really makes you.
it's terrifying.
You just have to act
Yeah.
like a better human.
Oh,
'Cause
yeah, I'm in that stage. The other day,
when
my daughter was like, "Mommy," and I was like, "Yeah." First off, all of a sudden, I'm mommy and not mama, and that's breaking my heart, but that's okay. She said, "Mommy," I said, "Yeah." She's like, "I'm on a very important meeting right now. Can you keep your voice down?" I was like, "Oh my gosh, is that what I sound like?" And I was like, "Who are you on a meeting with?" She's like, "Shh, they're on the computer,
oh
mommy." And
my
I was like,
gosh, wow, how
"Okay."
many times have you said that?
I was like, "Oh gosh, I'm doing too much work from home in this house."
I hear you. Well, it's like if the dog's barking at the mailman and you yell at the dog and now
Yep,
she yells at the dog, and it's like, all right, I really gotta like. It's
yep.
fine to discipline the dog, but I gotta just make sure how I'm doing this
Yeah, they're
is
watching.
it's they watch every
Yeah.
and how I respond with my wife or how
Mhm.
we interact with each other. They watch
Yeah,
everything.
it's really crazy. Mhm.
Absolutely. So, do you see any opportunities in in your industry that you're looking to capitalize on? And I mean, you mentioned a couple in this, and some. I mean, your whole industry is actually an opportunity, like
Yeah.
arbitrage of opportunity. But is there anything in specifics that you're looking forward to venturing into?
I think for right now, I'm currently with like too much on my plate. I think with the real estate, the two kids at home, and like mama of all trades really starting out with all these consults and pumping courses. And then I've just kind of started sampling into like the Facebook community.
Mhm.
That's kind of where I am right now, and then my book coming out. So I think down the line I have like big goals, but I think my kids need to be in school and I need a little bit more time. But I have a like long-term goal of having an actual place.
Mhm.
And that place looks like almost like a mix of like, those play places now that have like coffee and kids
Yeah.
can play.
My daughter's second birthday is gonna be at
Yeah,
one of
yeah,
those.
yeah. And there's also like the places where moms can go for lactation
Yeah.
consultants, and then there's also like libraries and this, and it to me, I as the educator, it's kind of would be a hub where we could do like 9 to 11 like circle time morning, like a routine for moms to come every day, right? And
Mhm.
their kids can have structure instead of just play. Like they can get I know when I took my kids out of daycare, I feel like they're missing that schooling experience. Like I can take them to play classes, but they're not getting that routine.
Mhm.
And so I'd love something that is like a little routine of school, but also that's like for nursing and pumping moms. Like you have more than one kid. You need somewhere to go where you can sit
Mhm.
comfortably, where you can nurse your child in a safe space and no one's going to judge you. Where maybe you need to see a lactation consultant, but your kid can play in an open play
Wow.
space while you're seeing a lactation consultant. And so it's kind of like a mom community, just there's no, like, real, like, thing to it. It's not like you're going to an open play place. You're not going to a library, but it's kind of just like a safe mom
Yeah,
space for postpartum moms. So,
absolutely.
I would even be open to having, like, therapists there so moms can talk, right? Like, I just wanna be a safe place. So, like, my ultimate goal would be, like, an actual building one day, but that is, like, years down the line.
We'll see. I think it's a great
Yeah,
opportunity. I think that there's a great need for that.
yeah,
I could also see you even franchising what you're doing,
yeah,
and mom of all
yeah,
trades, you having like a course where you teach
but yeah,
consultants, and then there's consultants under you doing exactly because
yeah,
there's only so many. I know you're just getting started with it,
yeah,
but like you only have so much time, and
exactly.
there's a lot more people that need you than you can
Yeah,
actually help.
yeah,
So I could really see you franchising this
yeah,
as well, and
yeah.
training people to do what you're
That's the
doing.
hope. The hope is it takes off.
I think it will. I think you're doing some really great stuff.
Thank
So
you.
I really appreciate you taking the time, Sammy. So thank you. It was a pleasure to meet you. And thank you all for listening. And I hope that if you're an expecting mom or you know any expecting moms or have already had your children and could you benefit from any of these, definitely reach out to Sammy
Yeah.
at Mama of All Trades. But also, if you are a business owner or an entrepreneur or know any businesses or entrepreneurs that you think would be a great fit for this podcast, please reach out. I'd love to hear your story. Thank you. Have a great day.